Whenever we talk about the ethics of our technology, it feels like we always have to pick one of two sides. Either, hey, it's just a neutral tool, or nope, it's totally biased by its creator. But what if there's another way? Today, we're exploring a really powerful third path, a new way to think about building morality into our machines. When it comes to tech and ethics, it feels like we're always stuck in this loop, right? We tend to box our thinking into one of two categories. Either the tech is a completely neutral tool, or it comes preloaded with the values of the people who made it. So on one side, you have the amoral view. You hear it all the time. It's just a tool. The person using it is the one who's responsible. Then on the other side, you've got the moral view, which says the tech is prescriptive. It pushes you to do certain things, and so the creator has to bear that responsibility. But here's the thing. What if this whole debate is a trap? What if there's another option that gets at something way more fundamental? Well, that third option is what we're calling the pre-moral machine. Now, this is technology that's engineered not to have or to push its own morals, but to create the very capacity for moral action to happen in the first place. I mean, this is a totally foundational shift in how we think about this stuff.
Okay, let's really dive into this. To get what makes this idea so unique, we kind of need to map out the neighborhood, See where this idea fits in with some of the philosophical giants who've tackled these questions.
The closest neighbor is probably Luciano Floridi's concept of infraethics. He talked about things like accountability and privacy being the conditions of possibility for morality. That sounds almost exactly the same, right? But here's the key difference. Floridi saw this infrastructure as social and political, rules, norms. Our frame goes one layer deeper, all the way down to the physical hardware itself. You can actually trace the roots of this way back to Immanuel Kant. He was the one who pointed out that things like rational autonomy are preconditions for moral action. But for Kant, these preconditions were all inside the human mind. They were innate. The pre-moral machine takes that idea and locates those preconditions in a physical substrate, something we can actually engineer and build. And this really helps us see how different this is from thinkers like Langdon Winner. He famously argued that artifacts always have politics, that they're always moral. And look, he's totally right that just claiming your tech is neutral is often bogus. But this isn't a claim of neutrality. It's a claim of a very specific, very different design commitment to enable moral faculty, not to impose a moral choice. The closest parallel in spirit, actually, comes from political theory. Judith Shklar's liberalism of fear argues that the goal should be creating conditions, like safety and the rule of law, that make it possible for people to pursue a good life, without the system ever trying to define what that good life is. It's all about tilting the board, not telling people how to play. So here's the really crucial point. None of these thinkers, as close as they all came to this idea, made that final move. They never took the argument down to the hardware itself. Think about it like this, in layers. Most of our ethical debates happen at the top two layers, arguing over specific moral values or the software and social norms that guide behavior. But the real game-changing stuff, the truly innovative work, is happening at the very bottom, at the physical substrate. And this is what we call physical substrate infraethics. It's about engineering hardware, like memory chips, to create the unchangeable, tamper-proof foundations for the things we absolutely need to be moral agents, like a stable identity or a clear sense of our own agency. This is where the endless loop of software trying to verify other software finally hits bedrock. It terminates in physical, undeniable reality. And here's the real payoff. When you ground these ethical preconditions in hardware, you finally escape that infinite loop of trying to secure software with, more software. It's kind of like solving what computer scientists call the halting problem, this endless loop, but for ethics. You finally have a solid foundation where the buck really stops. Okay, so you might be thinking, if this idea is so powerful, why isn't it everywhere? Why haven't I heard of this before? Well, let's get into why this perspective is actually incredibly rare. The answer, believe it or not, comes down to the number 3. To truly get this framework, you have to be able to hold 3 very different perspectives in your head at the exact same time. First, you need some serious technical literacy to understand that this shift to the physical substrate is real, not just a metaphor. Second, you need moral seriousness. You have to genuinely care about enabling these faculties for people. And third, you need commercial discipline, which is the really tricky one. It means refusing the temptation to either call your tech a moral savior or to just wash your hands of all responsibility. The problem is, most people, philosophers, engineers, founders, only have 2 out of the 3. And that always pulls the conversation back to more familiar but less useful territory.
So, to bring it all together, what we're looking at here is a concept that sits in this really unique spot. It's truly new, but it's not so alien that we can't get it, because it has clear neighbors in the world of ideas, but absolutely no identical twins. And if you ever need to get academic about it, the language is there. Using a precise phrase like this shows exactly how this idea builds on and then moves beyond the frameworks that already exist. It's a respectful evolution.
This is the sweet spot for any really innovative idea, right? It has to be legible, close enough to what people already know so they can actually grasp it, but it also has to be novel, distinct enough that it doesn't just get absorbed and disappear into those older ideas. And that is exactly where the premoral machine sits. So here's the ultimate takeaway. By focusing on building the physical preconditions for morality, we can tilt the entire board in favor of human agency, but without ever moving the pieces for people. We create a stable foundation for others to build their own moral worlds. And that leaves us with a pretty profound final question. If our technology can create the very capacity for moral action, what will we choose to empower with it?